During this week's video, we put a XJ tank in the back of a ZJ. Welcome back to the channel. We're starting this video off right where we left off on the last video with this Jeep Grand Cherokee, where we cut the whole backside of this Cherokee off. The frame was bent, rusted, and this whole corner on the passenger side was not even there. It was so rusted out. This side, on the driver's side, where the filler comes through for the fuel tank, busted. Pinching the fuel filler hose, and the whole Jeep is just, it's in bad shape. But we're trying to make that better. We are gonna do a fuel tank tuck. So the ZJ fuel tank is obviously what was in here. But my mission is to try to get an XJ fuel tank in here. But I don't know who has done it, and if they have, I couldn't find anything on the interwebs. So I wanna see if this ZJ Grand Cherokee fuel pump fits in the XJ fuel tank, because you can see the fuel pumps are different. And the reason I want the XJ fuel tank, it's actually a couple more inches narrow than the ZJ. So the frame rails in this Jeep actually kind of narrow in a teach beat. And since we can't do the tank tuck on the back side of the frame because we lopped it off, we have to try to get it inside these frame rails, which are much closer together.
What?
But you can see we're already running into some issues. I already cut the tailpipe off, but now the tailpipe comes up and over the rear end and is in our way. So if we need to cut this floor out, that exhaust is in our way. I could just cut it off, but there's no hangers from the rear of this frame to the front of the exhaust underneath the Jeep. So I have to go get a exhaust hanger. This is how this project's starting already.
It does not look good.
Go get some parts at O'Reilly's and try to hang that exhaust up so we can lop the rest of the tailpipe off so we can cut the floor out. So I'm running to O'Reilly's. Try to get this video going. More importantly, try to get this Jeep up to the iron range in 3 days. Have the floor cut out, and here is the XJ tank, but the tank still doesn't fit. So more cutting, and it's gonna get a little bit more sketchy because I'm gonna be cutting into the uniframe a little bit. It's just a little too narrow up here, and the tank's a little bit too wide. It might fit a little bit better if I could come up from the bottom, but we do have a track arm and a axle in our way and some control arms. But this is the view from the bottom. But we want to sit the tank right here on the bottom of the rail. So we got to cut some more of that cross member off in the front, which I'm not too concerned about because we'll be building a new cross member in the front there to support the tank. The plan is the tank will just sit down in there, and then we'll put the straps over the top.
A few moments later.
Check it out, boys and girls. It fits. We did a little bit more cutting. Grab the big old hammer out, beat the sides of each side of the unibody. It's fitting in there real nice. I'm gonna have to run to the steel yard tomorrow and grab some 4x4 angle. I think that would be best practice. I'll hammer in the unibody frame a little bit more on each side, then so I have enough room to slide down some fresh metal to tack onto the unibody here and cut the floor out a little bit on the top and get that angle and get a nice box going. Let me show you underneath. So if you come underneath the tank, look how well this fits. I mean, ideally you would want to put a big plate down here and protect this tank. And then on the front side, you can see we will, put our angle up and around here. So we'll have fresh metal. But before I get too carried away, I really should see if the ZJ pump is gonna fit in this XJ tank. So, a lot of things up in the air right now. But we're moving forward and heading in the right direction. All that stuff's gonna happen tomorrow for me. It's late, I'm butched, and you get refreshed and have a new mindset. So we can get this XJ tank in our ZJ wheeler. Well, as you see, we've been messing around with the fuel pumps this morning. It's about 75 degrees and the humidity is already cranking up and the sun is gonna start poking through here like now. But to the fuel pumps. We have the ZJ fuel pump into the XJ tank and it appears it's gonna work. There's the XJ pump and the ZJ fuel tank, which I know this works because there is a lot of videos of people with their XJs, their Cherokees, upgrading to the bigger tank. So that bigger tank will go in the XJs, the newer XJs. And then you get 3 more gallons a tank, which we might do that. We have an XJ. We might not either, because this ZJ tank will go into my daily ZJ, which I ended up nicking when I did the fuel pump. I did that cheap hack your floor off, make an access hole to change your fuel pump video. Yeah, don't do that. I nicked the fuel tank and I'm still here today to tell you the story. So let's see what we need to do to get this in the Jeep and see if it runs. I feel like I need to know if this fuel pump will run in the ZJ. We are going to change the fuel lines a little bit because it is in a new location. The fuel filter, nothing should be different with the connectors because it is the connector from the ZJ to the ZJ pump. So, but I really want to hear it run before we hard mount this tank in the back of this Grand Cherokee. Well, we are playing the filler hose game. Took the hoses that were on the XJ filler. Those are pretty grody. Now I'm working on the ZJ tank. And we have the hoses off the ZJ tank. I thought I could use these hoses. I can use the overflow, the vent tube from the ZJ. It's not in horrible shape, but I cannot use this one. This is from the tank side, which is super questionable. And this side is cut off because the filler on the ZJ, the Grand Cherokee, this is not the filler, but it looked just like this. It's in the trash can now because it was completely rusted out. So I better get on the old Google machine and see if I can order a filler hose. That might be a game stopper. And I will continue to mock this tank up. I told you earlier, and I lied to you, that I was gonna fill the XJ tank and put it in the back of the ZJ and see if the fuel system worked. But after I thought about it, I really don't want to fill it up with fuel, try to get it out and in and out. So I'm gonna try to see what it takes to build a little box in the back of the ZJ there to put the tank in, and then see if it works. I'm already committed to the XJ tank anyway, so I might as well just mock it up and clear that floor and make it stronger and box it in. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And I don't know if you saw the B-roll either. I do have 2 holes in that ZJ tank, as you saw in the video. So I'm kind of sour about that. Maybe we can fix that. If you have ever fixed a fuel tank before, let me know, because I would like to know what you use for epoxy and if it worked. Keep moving forward. Sitting here contemplating life's decisions. Not really, but this is the idea I have going. We're gonna put this old bed rail for like a ladder rack on a pickup. So I thought that would be pretty neat to have these bars in the front. Oh, well, let me show you where I'm gonna put it. So this is 45 inches from wheel tub to wheel tub. And that piece that I have, that old bed rail, is more than that. So it should fit right here in this area. So if we cut it up and cut the floor out a little bit more, we will have the bed rail come all the way out to each wheel well. And then we'll have a mounting point also when we roll cage this Jeep. So that piece will have multiple functions. We'll have a new spot in here to attach the fuel tank. We'll have a mounting place for the cage. We'll restructure, and then they'll have that fancy bar. So we can use it to tie down things. Might be tying down this tank so we can get to the iron range in 2 days. It fit the first time. Yes, we have to do a bunch of trimming to make it sit flat. I was thinking about using these pieces. These are the pieces that came off the ends of this bed rail. But I do have another bed rail, so I could grab the other bed rail and try to make that fit in this section here. Like I said earlier, I'm gonna beat this frame rail in a little bit further because it's going to be too tight once I plate the side of it. So there's going to have to be some big hammer action going on, and I might try to use the other bed rail, but first I'm going to fit that front piece. So I got to do some more cutting up there to make it flatter and to go in a little bit further, because like I said, when you're adding metal, the tolerances get tighter. If the tank sits a little bit more loose in this big hole we're making, is better, because then it won't rub up against metal and rub a hole in the tank. So we want to make the square as big as we can, but yet not too sloppy where the tank wants to play around in the back of your Jeep. So more cutting. It's kind of the theme in this video. You know, we did get the fuel pump in the XJ tank. Still don't know if it works, but we're trending in the right direction. These are the blades that I've just used so far, and I foresee more cutoff wheels coming my way. I do use the Hercules cutoff wheels.
Look at my strong Hercules.
And I do the 5-inch ones instead of the 4.5, with a bigger 4.5 angle grinder, and it does pretty well. I mean, I do have a plasma cutter, I do have a big chop saw, but sometimes that angle grinder just gets it done faster and more efficient. So I'm just the angle grinder guy. Speaking of that, time to do more cutting. If I keep cutting this Jeep, I don't know if I'm gonna have much Jeep left. Let me show you my next plan. We do a little limbo underneath the bar.
We're dead. And this is limbo.
And come back in here. Yes, we cut another 4 inches out. Maybe 2. But anyways, this cross member, factory cross member, is completely, well, almost completely deleted. So I'm gonna delete it completely and cut this back and bend this back in. And then I'm gonna throw a plate down in here and up in here, so then our new cross member will fit and we will have this big plate on this unibody to weld do. So guess what? Yeah, more cutting. Fun fact, this metal that I'm using, this ladder rack side rail that we're using right here, you know, for our cross member, was also our motor mounts for our 5.9 TJ buggy we're building. Yeah, you like those motor mounts? Pretty snazzy. So that bed rail just keeps giving. Okay, now more cutting.
Please like and subscribe.
We did more cutting off camera, and we're gonna do more cutting off camera, but let me show you the next game plan. So we do have that cross member out again. Now it's completely out. And look what I discovered on the driver's side. That upper control arm is completely off the frame rail there. And this frame rail is a 2-piece. You can see the line after I try to clean this up a little bit, and then I didn't clean this because I just plan on cutting this section completely out, because there's no structure here now that I kind of peeled the floor back, because we do have to move this in a little bit. But instead of hammering this all in, I'm just going to cut it out, because the 2-piece in here is kind of hard to see, but you can see the seam down. Oh, and there you can see it. You can see the seam there where the bottom rail on that frame is right here. So we can just cut this top piece off like I said, and then when we weld our new angles in, we'll tie it in here. But we'll tie our plate to this upper control arm and up in here and over for our new cross member. We have the tank mocked in its box again, but I think we're ready to weld. So we got to do some fabricating, get the cardboard out and make some templates. We'll burn this front piece in first. It's looking pretty level, pretty square, and we are gonna have to use these guys, but hopefully I can go find a little bit longer ones from the bed rail when we did the bleeping Jeep cart for the boner bouts. But in here, let me show you once I take the tank out what we'll have to do. And we're gonna just focus on mounting this front angle first. So that's where we'll bust the cardboard out, because we need a piece from the upper control arm up this frame rail and up to here, and then that will be boxed in kind of like that, like my hand, yeah. And then once this is boxed in, not my hand, a piece of metal, then we'll be able to tie this piece to that piece to this piece, and then hopefully we find a longer one, and then tie this piece to our rear hitch. So let's go find some cardboard, do some cutting with the scissors, then cutting with an angle grinder again. If I'm lucky, one template will do both sides. Wouldn't that be amazing? To the scissors.
All right, let's do it. Rock, paper, scissors. Yes!
Have our pieces made to do some welding, to patch in our upper control arm to a plate. I leveled that back piece out with the piece of angle iron that we had on the side here. It's like made and meant to go here. I just stuck it in to level it out, like I said. But look at, there's that angle iron that was on the side rail that I used to just level this so it's nice and flat. But it wants to be here. So I am gonna tack weld it on this transmission tunnel. And when we pull it back off, even better, the top piece underneath the plate that's supporting it right now lines up with the cut in the floor. So I'll be able to tack the floor to that angle piece into the transmission tunnel. Sometimes it just works your way. In that case, that piece was meant for that spot. Time to do some welding on the Cherokee. Might have to change the name of the Jeep from Goldie to Patch. We're patching a lot of patches in the Jeep. But you guys probably want a progress report. Here you go. Those patch panels in here couldn't look any better. Look at that. Tying the upper control arms to our new cross member. And then you come over onto this side. And remember how nasty and rusty that was, guys? But look at that. We have a upper control arm attached to a cross member. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Let's go cut some 16-inch bedside rails from our ladder rack. See if we can tie the rest of this frame in. And then test fit the tank. And then we still have to figure out how to get the tank secure in the Jeep and see if the fuel pump works and yada yada yada. We're getting there though. We're getting there. Real quick, you guys probably want to see, I just threw some tack welds in here. It's really not structural. It is kind of just holding up transmission tunnel, but I will probably throw some more welds in there eventually. Probably when we figure out what seats are gonna go into Goldie in the rear. I'm guessing the rear seats that were in Goldie probably won't fit anymore because we are taking up a lot of real estate with this new cross member. True facts. Pump the brakes. I came up with an idea before we put the side rails, because I really didn't want to put the side rails on the inside like I was saying earlier. So I thought I better put a cross brace in to see how we are gonna mount this tank so it doesn't sit too low, it doesn't sit too high. So this is what I came up with. Ready? I had a piece of this angle iron sitting around, and we so happened to have just the right length, which was 34 inches. So I stuck it in there. It's underneath, it's in between the frame rails or the unibody, whatever you want to call it. You can see it in there, and it's suspending the front of the tank. And right now I just have this piece wedged in to kind of level it out to see where it would kind of sit on the back end. And the tank kind of does this number, so it's not truly flat. So it's kind of throws the guy off a little bit. But I think we can get this tank down a couple more inches because I'm really not liking it way up in the air like this. So, but there's a fine line too, right? Like, so I got the track bar in the rear axle. If you bottom the rear axle out, or if you're flexing it way out, you don't want the tank hanging way low where it would come into contact with anything. But I do believe that we can cut maybe 2 inches out of the frame rails right there, and then we can get that to come down a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Or better yet, maybe I just cut the bottom of that angle and then bring it down. And then I don't have to compromise the frame rails. Even though I'd be welding a new piece in there, I wouldn't have to be notching any of that structure out. Yeah, so let me mess around with getting that angle iron down a little bit for the front. And then we'll address the rear. And then maybe we can, because the tank sits up higher now, so maybe we can make our frame rails on the outside like we did with that other plate up front. Yeah, we have the new cross member mounted for the tank. A couple tack welds. Let's see what happens. First time's a charm. It's usually the third or fourth time for me. Hey, first time. It does sit up a little higher than I like, but I'm gonna play it safe. Let me show you on the bottom side. So in here, there's our cross piece that we put in, and it is pretty flush on the bottom side of the frame rails. So I believe I should play it safe. I could go down another inch there. You can see right there. I could go down another inch on that angle, on that crossbar that's holding the tank. But let's play it safe. Let's burn that cross piece in right there. But while we have this suspended, Jenga style, let's measure this back side and grab this other angle down here, put it across and see we're gonna make something work in the rear, and then burn them both in. Then maybe put some straps over the top. Hopefully not ratchet straps. Hopefully the factory straps can work somehow. We'll see. Well, we have the back brace put in for the tank, and it matches our back bar. How convenient. This is a little crude. I don't really like the way this angle is in here, but this angle does fit really good against the tank. So it's angled just a little bit, and the top and the bottom end fit right onto the tank. So it snugs it in there pretty well. I don't really love it. I kind of like it, kind of not. It's gonna be good enough for now. I didn't do anything over here on this side. Just did a full weld from the receiver hitch to this piece, because like I said, I don't really love it, so I don't even know if I'm gonna keep it. It's gonna work for the weekend. Then we fully welded that cross member in for the front of the tank. So now we can focus on filling in the rest of our frame. We'll get that tackled, put the frame together, and then we can put that tank in and plumb the new tank, the XJ tank, into the ZJ. See if she pops off and it runs. And it pulls itself out of here onto the trailer, onto the iron range. Well, we got the side rails mocked in, and now it's time to see if this tank fits. Our boy put the hoses on. They came in one day from the jungle store. So that is super rad. It came with the hose clamps and both hoses for like 15 bucks. So I'll put that link in the description below. I'm assuming that would work for a ZJ as well, but I could be wrong. This does look a little bit narrower than a ZJ filler hose, because this is the XJ filler hose for the XJ tank. Now will it fit? She's a little tight. Too tight. So I'm gonna have to cut this bracket out and try to rework the unibody. The unibody kind of does a, so trying to put a flat angle iron in there kind of makes it want to kick out, so it's touching right down here. So I do need to get that front wider. It's not gonna work the first time, let's be honest. All right, we just had to set the camera down last night. Got most of it done right now. We're supposed to leave a couple hours ago to the iron range. So this is pretty crude. We got the tank in. Like I said, we just used ratchet straps and koozie cups. We got the factory fuel pump hooked up. I'll bring you around in a second on that side. Pretty crude here too. Zip ties holding the filler, you know, on this spare tire mount. But check this out. Look at the departure angle on this Grand Cherokee now. She's looking good. We didn't have time to wire up the winch in the back, so we just threw a D-hook back here, and we're just gonna have to have friends pull us out. But let me show you around the front side of the tank, and then we're gonna fire it up for the first time. So we used all the factory fuel lines. The one that came from the pump to the filter, this was on the bottom side, of course. I had to makeshift. This is from the XJ. I had to warm up some water because this adapter on here is supposed to be a 90. And yeah, she busted off when we were taking the ZJ tank out. So that's the only thing I've changed on here, which really I didn't change. But it's got the factory harness for the electronics, factory vent. So all that is factory from the ZJ to the XJ tank. This is a wiring jumble mess. We lost the taillights. There was a little hack job that happened in here that, you know, learning lessons were had for my boy. So I asked my boy to take the amp out of here, which just comes with a factory amp. So that sat underneath the seat because we were gonna row bar this thing. So we're just kind of taking items out that we don't use because we don't even have a radio in here. A lot of other wires got cut, so we don't have taillights right now. Hopefully that doesn't stop us up there at the iron range and we pass tech without taillights. I don't know the rules. Hope the battery's not dead. See if we hear the fuel pump. I heard the fuel pump kick on, so we might have fuel pressure. So no leaks, looking good at the moment. Let's power cycle it. This Jeep likes to be power cycled twice before you start it anyways. Heard the fuel pump again. I'm nervous. You guys nervous? By the way, before we start this, what do you guys do for fuel lines? Like I said, I had to makeshift that one. I went to Amazon, like, you know, I bought the filler hose off of Amazon, but I could not find those fuel lines anywhere. Napa doesn't have them, O'Reilly's doesn't have them, Amazon doesn't have them. Unless you guys have a link or a way to get these fuel lines, those press fit fuel lines, or do you guys just go aftermarket? That's another beef I have with the Amazon world. None of my local parts stores carry any aftermarket AN fittings, so you got to order them online. And I don't have time. I had to get this buttoned up in one day. So that's another beef I have with online shopping. The local hot rod shops and parts stores, they don't carry much aftermarket support. That kind of bothers me. All right, you ready to fire it up? Comment below, by the way, if you know where you can get fuel lines for Jeeps. Power cycled again. Heard the pump. No leaks. It worked. Make sure you guys come back, check out the video when we go to Iron Rock Off-Roads Appreciation Day up at the Iron Range. I'm excited. We got it. We got to leave 2 hours ago. All right, I'm gonna throw the doors on, throw it on the trailer. We're going 5 hours north. We're supposed to be there. Anyways, thanks for watching. And until next time.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hang on, guys.
All right, guys, I couldn't end the video without showing you what I just did. You know, I'm not able to put the back seat in there because the fuel filter and the fuel lines are coming through. And that new cross member that we put in there, that was an old bedside for a ladder rack. But check this out. Before I threw the doors on, I made this little carrier. It's one of those cargo carriers that go on your hitch. So I just hacked off the hitch part and just threw some bolts into the old seat mounts. Well, the seat mounts are just below it, but the frame is right there. So I just threw some bolts in. She ain't going nowhere, folks. So that's pretty rad. So we'll be able to throw the doors on and hit the iron range. Let's go!